Hello and welcome back to Focus Atlanta. Thanks so much for continuing to watch. We're going to shift the focus just a hair and talk a little about your voting rights and what we want you to do when it's time for you to go to the polls. I'm here with Fatimah. Hi, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Hi, nice to be here. I'm very happy to talk to you about voting rights today.
I appreciate your time. It seems like we get geared up for the big elections, right? Everybody is thinking about it. Everybody's getting geared up. But these are things we should think about even for the small elections. Can we talk a little bit about that?
Sure. I mean, I'm somebody who believes that we are duty bound to vote. I believe in democracy. I'm an attorney. I volunteer for Election Protection, which is a nonpartisan organization that tries to help people ensure their voting rights and their access to the polls. And so I've been volunteering for elections for a number of years. And for people to ensure their rights, especially, including the small one-offs, right, where people like, wait, there's a municipal judge election or some county thing, it's important for people to be proactive to enforce their rights. One thing that I personally do is I look up when the dates are for elections each year and I add all of them to my calendar, even the random ones, and then people should also be mindful about what the dates and deadlines are to register to vote, to request an absentee ballot. And then some people, especially in a state like Georgia, where, to be honest, they've been purging people improperly from the voting poll rolls. And so what people should do is go to a website sort of like a Rock the Vote, and they can look up what their registration status is. They can look up what the election dates are in their area. But, it's really important, to confirm that you're registered, especially if you move. If you want to get an absentee ballot, you need to request it. I was looking up the dates for Georgia, right? And so you've already started the early voting process for the primary that started February 19th, goes till March 8th, with the election on March 12th. But if you want to request an absentee ballot, you have to request it by March 1st. That's not send it March 1st. That means received by them by March 1st. And then you have to return your absentee ballot by March 12th. That means received there. You can mail it, drop it off, but it can't be that, ooh, it's postmarked, that won't do it. And I have to say, because this is where people mess up, and I don't know what the ballot looks like, the absentee ballot looks like for Georgia, but a lot of people mess up on the instructions. And then when they mess up on the instructions, their ballot gets tossed. You have to sign multiple places, including on the envelope, then put the envelope inside of another envelope, right? And do it all properly so that your ballot doesn't get tossed. And when you register to vote, what's really important is to use your consistent signature. Right? So I have multiple signatures, right? There's the lazy one, the one I use on legal documents. Use your most official signature.
Oh my goodness, it's so, much. It seems so daunting sometimes, especially the things that you mentioned, like when you move and making sure. And I've heard, again, here in Georgia, some people said, oh, my polling place changed. I didn't even know. Getting that kind of background, like those things seem to be so important when it's time for us to vote.
And remember that your polling location can change, right? So maybe the polling site is not where you're going to go for the general election. So they'll send you stuff in the mail. But if you're not sure, then, look up in your county. There are websites that can help tell you where you're supposed to go. And it's really important for people to look at this proactively. And I can't speak to what the regulations are for Georgia, right, for all of your rules. But if you're homeless, right, if you are unhoused, that doesn't mean you've lost your right to vote. There just means that there might be a process to figure out, like, is there a shelter that you could use for your address? If you're a former felon, that doesn't necessarily mean that you've permanently lost your right to vote. You'd have to see what the rules are in a place like Georgia, but there are plenty of places where if you were previously incarcerated, that you have not permanently lost your right to vote for the rest of your life. You just may have to go through some sort of process to reinstate that right. But the most important thing that people can do is know your rights, right? Like in Georgia, you guys had passed that legislation that said, like, you can't pass out water to people and food to people, right? Yeah. And then that was overturned in the court. So just know what the process is. Yeah. And then the other thing that I'll say is, because let's call it what it is, right? Voting has become contentious. when it really shouldn't be contentious. And there's the whole big lie and voter fraud, when statistically, people have a better shot at being struck by lightning than they're actually being voter fraud, because it
Wow.
is so negligible. It just really does not happen. But for people who want to engage in those kinds of conversations, I will encourage people to talk about it, but if they want to be armed with data and statistics and talking points and how to respond to some of the ignorant, comments that people may make,
Right.
I recommend that they get, the book that I've written, which you can see behind me, Race Rules, What Your Black Friend Won't Tell You, because I have an entire chapter. I go very deep into voting rights, and I talk about what's happened with the law, and I have a chart where I compare Jim Crow versus Jim Crow 2.0,
Wow.
and I show the similarity. And what I also do is have sort of talking points and things that people can use to respond to the things that people say, well, we should have an ID. Why? We should be doing this, or we don't have election integrity. Yes, we do have election integrity. It's a problem, it's a solution in search of a problem. We don't have that problem. The problem that we have is making it difficult for people to enforce their right to vote. That's the problem America has.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. Thank you for shedding light on some of the issues that we're having. It was a pleasure to meet you.
A pleasure to meet you, and thank you so much. And I say, everybody vote, vote, vote.
Vote, vote, vote. I agree. Thanks, guys, for tuning in to this segment of Focus Atlanta. We'll be right back with more.